Welcome to the Crazy Killing Machine Network's presentation of the Keyforge Premier League with Jupiter Sakadura. Today's match will pit Z from Team SAS versus Dave Cordeiro from Team Reapout. So we see that Z is bringing his deck Clay of Ratborn, which we've seen in the tournament before. This is a double Quixelstone deck that basically drives itself with this raw amber count being at 16 amber, and has a relatively good engine in its logo suite to push through the deck to find the things he needs to set up and basically lock in. So this deck could be pretty dangerous. The Tachyon Pulse is kind of counterproductive and anti-synergistic to the deck, but it's not something that has to be played to be great. So with that said, let's take a look at Dave's deck. Here we see Dave bringing in the Rebellious Mongoose of Sea Cester. This deck is a Brobnar Dees Untamed suite that has only 10 raw amber, which will be hard to keep up with the double Quixelstone layout that Z is playing with. But it does have mimicry and punctuated equilibrium to basically cause some disruption in the way that the game is being played out for Z as he tries to set up his turns. We also see that he does have Exhume and Infurnaces and Colors of Subordination. So the disc package is pretty good and looks pretty strong to combat some of what Z is trying to do on the other side of the board. We also see that it has triple Grok, which is a very strong Brobnar card, and Berserker Slam, which is probably one of the strongest spells in the Brobnar house at this point. So it will be interesting to see how these guys match up and how they go about their business. But let's take a look at the game and see what it's going as they're waiting for us now. The Keyforge Premier League also presents Fall Mass Mutation Madness this weekend on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 2-deck survival mass mutation only on November 7th again. That's this weekend, this Saturday. Top 8 places get cash prize. 80% of the entry fee goes into the prize pool, and you get to qualify for Season 2 of the KFPL. Also, just for entering, you get a chance to win 20 luxurious playstyle Dark Amber tokens, a $55 MSRP value just for basically supporting our content in the league. So we'll see you on Saturday as we live stream on Twitch, so don't miss it. All right, so we are off and running as Dave is going to take the first turn, and he is going to populate the board with a Molfine. And Z will get to take his first turn, and it looks like he's going to be going into Shadows. And as he goes into Shadows, it looks like he is going to play a no safety in numbers to gain an Amber Pip, then play Fidget, Hugger, Mugger, and a Vinda to the board, and pass it back to Dave Cordero. We see Dave go into his turn and pick Untamed, and he's going to use the Mimicry to use the no safety in numbers to get rid of the board state and reap with the Molfine and back to Z. Here we see Z choose to go into House Logos. He will then start his turn by playing a Jargoogle and putting a card under the Jargoogle. Then he's going to play a Twin Bolt Emission to do 2 damage to the Molfine, kill the Jargoogle, bringing into play a Captain Valgerico. And using the Captain Valgerico now, he is going to play a Spike Trap and then end his turn by playing a Haspus. Here we're going to see Dave reply to this turn by playing into his dish house using color subordination to quickly grab the Captain Valgerico, play the Evil Eye to tax Z to 3, and then end his turn by playing his Not Finished With You Yet to gain an amber value off of that and passing the turn back to Z. As the turn is turned back to Z, it looks like Z is going to go back into his house Logos. He's going to use his Haspus here to fight the Captain Valgerico. Then he's going to use the Spike Trap to make sure that everything dies. And he's going to play Historian Plasmate for Amber, and he's Sanitation Engineer. And pass his turn back to Dave. Dave replies by going straight into Brobnar and playing 2 Brobnar creatures. The it looks like a Stiltkin and a Groak, and then he uses Stiltkin to do his bidding there, and he uses it to put some damage on the board, and then he basically populates with another Groak and plays a Slimy Jark. And that will be the end of his turn as he turns it back over to Z. And Z is going to respond with a Star Alliance turn in which he is going to play his Quixelstone and basically discard a Chan, an Ali, and a First Officer Fran and turn it back over to Dave. It looks like on Dave's turn here, he is going to go ahead and go back into Brobnar, and in doing so, he is going to use his creatures to reap and reap and reap and reap, and he is going to discard a NARP and call it a day and send it back to Z. Z will then take his turn, and he is going to go into Logos, use the Sanitation Engineer, to discard a Breaker Hill, it looks like. And then he is going to play his Igor. He's going to use his Icor to play a wormhole, play the Wormhole. The Wormhole is going to hit a Kymor Eclipse, and the Kymor Eclipse is going to return creatures back into the decks, and then he'll be readied up and sending it back over to Dave. And then Dave has some choices to make as the board has again shifted. So we see Dave taking his time as he has to make a decision here. I can't see hands because hands are closed. It looks like he's going into Dees here. He uses Dees to basically play Hysteria, and then he's going to play a Soul Fiddle and discard a Buzzle. So he's putting the Quixel pressure back on Z here as Z goes into his turn. So Z forges a key and quickly goes back into Logos to repopulate his Sanitation Engineer and adds a memory chip to the board and sends it back to Dave. So for Dave's turn, it looks like he is going to Punctuated Equilibrium and reset his hand. And in doing so, he is going to then look to see what his new hand draws him. It looks like it draws him a Piranha Monkeys that he's going to discard. He discards a Song of the Wild and a Bramble Lynx, and he turns it back over to Z as they play chicken with the Quixelstone. So we go back into Z's turn, and Z is deciding which house he wants to choose. It looks like he is going to choose. Goes back into Logos, activating his memory chip. So he's going to get a chance at his memory chip here. Next, he is going to. Looks like he is going to use his Sanitation Engineer here to discard a Logos plant. Then he's going to play Twin Bolt Emissions. And he is going to then discard a Universal Key Lock and send it back over to Dave. Dave is going to select House Dees here again, and he is going to basically play a Soul Fiddle, use a Soul Fiddle to put on the Sanitation Engineer, play an Infernus to purge a Groak and a Narp from his own pool to thin out the weeds a little bit. And then he's going to come back and play a 3 Fates and get Amber off of it and clear the board and send it back over to Z. Z is then looking at his turn. Looks like he is going to choose to go into House Shadows. And as he goes into House Shadows, he's going to play a Hidden Stash to get more cards archived and gain some Amber. He's going to basically discard a Fidget, play an Inky Gloom, and send it back to Dave for Dave's turn. Looks like Dave is going to have some thinking to do here as they continue to play this game of chicken, both at 1 key now for Amber each. Oh, there's another punctuated equilibrium turn where Dave is just recycling all the cards, and then he sends the turn right back over to Z. Z is quick to respond with a Logos turn, and he is going to archive another card off of that memory chip. Seems to be the thing to do right now for Z. He is then going to play a Wild Wormhole, which looks like it hit a thorium plasmate to gain some more amber off of it. And then he is playing the Twin Bolt Emission for more amber and discards a Jargoogle. And then we send it back over to Dave. Dave quickly goes into Brobnar, and in Brobnar he starts to cycle through some of his cards with the Warrior's Refrain. The Ire Staff comes into play. He plays the Berserker Slam, and then he discards a Laka, Calphine, and Grok. So we basically go back to Z's turn. Z gets to forge his second key, and we'll see where this takes Z as he goes into looks like Shadows. Yep. He plays No Safety in Numbers. He then discards the Kymor Eclipse. He plays a Logos Fiend, or a Logos Plant, excuse me. Not Fiend, a Logos Plant. Plays a Dusk Runner attached to the Logos Plant, which is interesting, and then discards a Vinda. So he stays within a relative confines of comfort there, and he pushes the turn back over to Dave. For Dave's turn, it looks like he is looking at going into his Untamed set. And in his Untamed set, it looks like he is thinking about playing, is that a Cauldron Boil, into discarding Song of the South, Molfiend, and Harmonia, it looks like. And then he's going to pass his turn back over to Z, where Z is going to again revisit Logos. It seems to be where he likes to live. Making a memory trap value. Has the Logos plant. He's going to basically gain 1 amber using it. Plays Wild Wormhole. Wild Wormhole takes him to a Spike Trap. The Spike Trap is then, he plays a Twin Bolt Emission to gain more amber and continues to play this game of Quixel Chicken. As Dave gets his turn, Dave quickly goes into his Dees house and he is going to play Infernus. He's going to purge a Hidden Stash and a Wild Wormhole, and then he is going to pass it right on back to Z. Alright, so we see Z going into his turn, and he looks like he is going to be going Star Alliance here. He opens his turn with a Tachyon Pulse to get rid of everything on the board except for the Infernus. Then he's going to play a Navigator Ali to get a little bit of insight to what his deck is doing here. And it looks like he's adding an enchantment there to the Ali to burst up to 7. Plays another Quixelstone to get to 8. Plays another enchantment and countersuit on the Navigator Ali. Discards Molina, discards another card there. I missed what it was. And then we turn over to Dave, and we see Dave say he concedes, and they're ready to move on to the next game. But before we get into the second game of this classic, let's talk one more time about the Fall Mass Mutation Madness 2-deck Survival Mass Mutation only event that will be happening this Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on November 7th. $10 entry fee, 80% of that going back into the prize pool. Plus, we are giving away luxurious playstyle tokens to everybody that participates gets a chance at the 20-piece Dark Amber set that was donated to us by the Luxurious Playstyle. So make sure you turn out for that event, and we hope to see you again this weekend. Let's get into this game 2 of this match. So here we are in round 2 as we are basically getting ready to see what is going to happen here as things get ready to get moving. We see that both sides are getting accustomed to their hands, and we are going to be off and running soon as we see a discard of a NARP early on by Z. And Dave basically gets to go into his turn. He's going to pick into the Star Alliance, and he's going to play his Quixelstone and discard Molina and send it back over to Z. See Z as he thinks about his turn. He's going to choose to go untamed. He is going to exercise his right to discard Harmonia, play a Cauldron Boil for Amber, and redraw his hand. We see Dave comes back. He plays No Safety in Numbers, going into Shadows to gain some Amber. Plays a Spike Trap, discards a Fidget, and discards a Breaker Hill. And basically, the game of Quickflow Chicken is on again. And Z for turn 3 is going to play Warrior's Refrain and basically pass turn back to Dave after he discards a Slimy Jark. Dave then comes back and plays a Twin Bolt Emission to gain Amber, and Thorium Plasmate to gain Amber, and a Memory Chip to be able to get things moving. And then we see it get pushed back over to Z, with Dave sitting at 6 Amber already, Z still at 3. Z decides to go into Dees. He plays Not Finished With You, plays 3 Fates, and then plays or discards Hysteria. So he pushes himself to 4 Amber there as he pushes back to Dave. Dave forges his first key. He's off and running. The Quixel Stone deck doing its job. We see Dave contemplate a little bit before he decides to go back into Star Alliance. He's going to play Stealth Mode to gain more Amber. He's going to discard the Encounter Suit, discard a Commander Chan, and send it back to Z. And Z is basically going to get to forge a... He's not going to get to forge a key because he's only at 4 Amber still, so... He is going to go into Untamed, though, and I'm guessing he's discarding Punctuated Equilibrium, he's discarding the Cauldron Boil. Then he ends turn with a Punctuated Equilibrium left in hand to be kind of sneaky about the setup here. Dave is then going to come back. He's going to go into Shadows. He's going to play Hugger Mugger, or he's going to discard Hugger Mugger, sorry. He's going to play Inky Gloom, and then he is going to use it to stop Z from reaping. And we await decisions on what he wants to do, whether he wants to actually play this plant or not. He decides not to. He discards it and passes it back to Z. And so we get right back into the game here as there is Dave's turn coming up. He decides to go Logos using his memory chip to archive. He is then going to follow up with a Wormhole into a Hapsis, plays the Universal Key Lock to slow down Z from making a key since Z was on check, and hands it back over to Z to see how Z wants to deal with that. Z then is going to take his time to think a little bit here. He's going to go into Dees. He's going to use the Soul Fiddle, play the Evil Eye to tax Dave. Even though Dave is only at 4 Amber, he is then going to use the Infernus, the first of 2 Infernuses at least, to get rid of some of the Amber pips on Dave's side and getting rid of Stealth Mode and Twin Bolt Emission. And then he plays the second Infernus to rip back out the Wild Wormhole and Twin Bolt Emission. So that's 4 Amber pips off of the count now for Dave as he tries to keep pace and outpace Z in this Quixel Stone showdown. Thunderfoot Harlan in the background. Sorry if you guys hear him. He is definitely active today. So we see Bizarro Dave going into the Amber. He's going to basically use the memory chip again, going into Logos, I should say, and use the memory chip again. He's going to play the Igor to basically try to generate some advantage here. I'm discarding a Tachyon Pulse, it looks like. He's going to play the Jargoogle. What will he put under the Jargoogle? Okay, it looks like was that Finishing Blow that he went under there? I don't know what that was. I didn't catch it. But Dave now waits to see what he wants to do. He could use a Spike Trap to activate that Jargoogle right now, which is what he looks like he did. And the Jargoogle plays the Hidden Stash to basically get more archive and more draw. So that sounds good. Dave is back only at 1. Z, it looks like Z is going to be off his key by 1 with the universal key lock, slowing him down just enough. Now there is a question. Dave asking if there is basically any reason why that card would not archive something, and basically Z says, I don't think so, so they are going to correct their action, and then they'll move forward in good sportsmanship. So, yay for that. And we are back over to Z's turn, who is now sitting at 8 amber and needs 9 to make a key. Dave at 1, also needing 9. But now we see Z go into the Untamed, not liking what he has in hand, so he is going to use his Punctuated Equilibrium to rotate his stock. You see him come into the Mimicry, which could be a huge play coming down the run, but as he had discarded the Tandaline and the Ghost Hawk, so the Mimicry now in hand for Z. That could be a big card. He also has a Collar of Subordination. A couple cool things. Exhume, so these Infernuses are even more deadly. But we'll see what happens as Dave goes into his turn now. Chooses Logos as his active house. Again, getting to use the value of that memory chip as the archives slowly get thicker and thicker. And we see him use Haspis to reap, and then he discards a Haspis and an Engineer, Sanitation Engineer, which was a big card for Z last game, so interesting decision. But I'm guessing he just doesn't want to see the board get any bigger with the Quixel Stones that he has out. By having both the Quixel Stones on the board too, though, Z, if he finds that can mimic that Tachyon Pulse or anything like that, that could be a big game changer as far as like being able to wipe out like the whole board state, right? Like all the artifacts off the board at once. So we'll see what happens with that as we move forward into Z's turn. All right, we see the Infernus being used to reap. Both Infernuses are used to reap, as Z is going to commit to trying to get his amber count up. He is going to then use his Soul Fiddle to enrage the Haspis, and then he is going to discard a Buzzle, play a Library of the Damned, and play Exhume, just to get to 11 amber. So basically that puts him neck and neck with Dave now, as Z's looking to make his first key, and we're going into Dave's turn. So Dave is able to play Wild Wormhole. He hits Inky Gloom off of it. Then he plays Igor, so he goes digging. He uses Aspis to fight one of the Infernus. Aspis gains a ward, and he uses a Plasmate to finish off an Infernus. And then he passes back with 4 amber and only needing 6 to make a key again, as Z paid the tax on the universal key lock. So big times there. All right, so we are awaiting the aftermath of the taxed key. David is sitting in pretty good position. Only concern I think I have is having both Quixel Stones out at the same time. All right, so we see Z going into Brobnar playing Iron Staff. I can't say the word right now. And then he discards a Alaka and a Grok. So he's still minimizing the amount of creatures that Dave is able to play onto the board. He's happy with him having 2 Logos creatures there, and Dave sacrifices one of his creatures there to get a clear board. It makes Z have no way to really push his thing, and he gets his Amber up to 5 and passes back to Z. As he does discard a Hugger Mugger along the way as well. Fun Quixel Chicken. This is Quixel Chicken at its finest. Alright, so we see Z as he starts discarding some untamed cards that he feels will have no value. He is holding on to that Mimicry. That Mimicry is a pretty clutch play. The Collar Subordination is not too shabby either, but that Mimicry definitely has some upside. But he does use it here to cycle a little bit. So he's going to get his Mimicry out of the way instead of waiting. He thinks he can get there without blowing up the board. So there's the memory chip doing work again, helping send the deck at this point with the archives being so thick, and soon Dave will be drawing nothing but quality. So we'll see how Z responds to this, as Z looks like he's going to go back into Dece. And again, he's going to probably put a cut down on the on what's going on across the board. He does tax Dave, so Dave cannot make a key at 6 this next turn, but he's also going to Infernus him. So he wouldn't be making a key anyway at this point. Z also starting to archive cards and basically try to wear down his opponent in his library, his amber stash. We see a pretty good draw there, I guess. The Piranha Monkeys and the Ghost Hawk. These are all creatures that have to go to the board. I don't think Z is actually into that right now, as he's kind of trapped as Dave again pushes to 6, threatening to make a key. The proportion of discarded cards to cards played in this game is relatively close, if not in favor of discarded, which is the Quixel game at its finest, I guess. So he decides to play the Warriors Refrained, and then he discards Narp and Grok. And then he sends it back over to Dave, sitting at 5 Amber, and Dave did forge his second key, so he's threading the game at 2/3 of the way there. Will he be able to gain and not garner enough momentum here to keep pushing through this? So there, he does have Tachyon Pulse in hand, which is not as scary now that the Mimicry is out of the way. So we go into Star Alliance. We see Dave put a stunner on the Infernus, discarding Chan, Fleet Officer Fran, and Molina. Holding on, and he discards the Tachyon Pulse. So we see Z go into Dece. Going to archive another card to get it out of the way. We see the Infernus come through again with the Reap. But now we see the 3 Fates to kill that Infernus, so he can play another Infernus if he so chose to. Alright, he's gonna take that value. Plays the Infernus, and he looks like he's gonna head back into Dave's deck and remove more goodies. He gets rid of the Stunner and the First Officer Fran. Alrighty, so we see Dave, and he plays no safety in numbers. Going into shadows, and then he is looking like he's played a pestering blow to irritate the Infernus's belly. I'm guessing he poked him in the belly. And Infernus is not the doughboy, but he's basically enraging the Infernus. So the Infernus, if there's nothing for the Infernus to fight, he can still reap. So that isn't going to slow him down too much. But it does put Dave to 2 amber, which is looking good. And then we have, looks like uses the Hugger Mugger to come into play, and then he uses Spike Trap. Coming, then he uses the Chimera Eclipse. So basically, he threw down a bunch of stuff and then just made everything disappear. So power to him as he sends it back over to Z, and Z gets to contemplate how he's going to get there. It's 2-2 now on keys, as Z does make his second key, and it is a race now to see who can finish stronger. So this is a kind of dangerous territory now, as the game of Quixel Chicken is coming to an end. Oh wow, Z has a lot of stuff in hand. There's the Infernus again to slow down Dave's progress even more, as he continues to purge cards. No safety in numbers and Spike Trap both purged away. Dave back to 0 amber. Z then takes the Hugger Mugger with the Collar of Subordination, and he's using the Library of the Damned to archive some. But he took the Logos plant, that's why, because it's not a Hugger Mugger, it's a Logos plant. So correction to my bad call, I couldn't read it very well. But it's the Logos plant that he took, so that's big because that makes it so he can use that Logos plant to kind of be a deterrent to Dave playing Logos, and Logos is where Dave really wants to be with the memory chip engine and all that. So, but Z did open up the board a little bit. Dave plays Thorium Plasmate again, just getting that value off that amber, even with all the cards that Z's purged. There's 10 cards purged. I'm guessing 9 of them at least have amber pips, like if not all of them. And you know, Dave's still pushing out cards that have amber pips on them. So this deck is doing exactly what Z has this deck to do. So what it does. So pretty awesome execution of Quixel Stones. Ooh, the Tachyon Pulse. Oh, we see the punctuated equilibrium. Z goes to 5. Dave's at 2. Oof. Now we got to see what kind of response Dave can come up with here. Z is threatening. And we await as Z is threatening, like I said, to approach that 9 amber mark that is set forth by the Universal Keylock. The winner of this game will have to go to 9. So there's that, at least, right? We'll see what happens with that as the outcome comes. But it looks like Z is going to continue to push forward here a little bit and do his thing, trying to keep up with the flow here. As he pushes to 7, Dave is at 4. So Dave responds. Draw Google Play. And Z has the ball in his court again. Be interesting to see what he chooses to do here. He can get some amber off of that 3 fates at least if he wanted to, and he could hysteria the Jargool, but instead he's going to go with Piranha Monkeys. And he's going to play some amber there. So he gets to 8, 8 to 9. Here it is, 8 to 4. 8 out of 9 for Z, 4 out of 9 for Dave. As the game is winding up here, we'll see who gets the final key as they come into the turn, basically, and are headed down the home stretch. Dave taking a moment to figure out what his next course of action is here. And Harlan is in the background playing with his lightsaber still because he loves it. We got him a red Sith one. And who doesn't love the Sith? So Dave trying to think of his best line here, so he's taking his time. Crucial moments. I think he has to go Logos here and try to dig with his Igor for more value, but because I don't see the answer to his problem right now in hand, so it'd be interesting to see how he decides to play this. Oh, he pulled the archives, so he's going big, and he's going into Star Alliance. Here goes the rut row play as we see the encounter suit attach. And we play Chance Blaster, and we get a Dusk Runner attached to Captain Val Jericho. We're starting to see the play. Now that Tachyon Pulse can't get played right now. If it gets played, then it's just game over, right? Because the Universal Keylock would get thrown away. Commander Chan, just building, 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 trying to go. But if he throws, and Z has the counterplay with the, if he discards that Tachyon Pulse, he can mimic it. So like, I'm not sure that there is a good out here unless Dave has the wisdom to keep the Tachyon Pulse in hand, which he does, and passes it to Z. So Z will go ahead and push to 9. Adds a little juice to the fire here. Jericho does have the counter suit, so she'll be the only creature in play now. She's now being enraged. Library of the Damned. But Z did get to 9, so he is on check. So Dave will have to pull him off of check, and then the Infernus is going to get played. We're going to take out some more amber from Dave, so it's 9 to 3. Going to be 9 to 2 probably here shortly. Oh, he takes his own. He takes a Berserker Storm and a Warrior's Refrain out. And he puts Dave to 1, and he's at 9, so he's in check. So Dave has to find a way to take him off of check. Does he have that in hand? He does have, is that Hugger Mugger? Keep thinking he has a Hugger Mugger. Silly plant and Hugger Mugger. Like, my eyes do not let me see the difference in those. Even though I know the art is incredibly different, but on a smaller screen, it's hard to see them, and especially covered in the hand. But I'm pretty sure that's a Hugger Mugger in Dave's hand. But it's a very short-term solution for the problem. Okay, so he does go Shadows. He does play the Hugger Mugger. He discards Vinda. He discards all that. Plays Inky Gloom. It goes back to Z, where Z is at 8 and it's 9 now. So let's see what happens here. We await. He takes his time at turn 20 to try to put this game away. Like the Quixelstone game is coming to a halt here. As he has been able to find a lot of value off of those Infernuses this game, and he's looking to try to figure out how he can best close this out. Little does he know that it's something as simple as just reap for one. If he reaps for one, he's in a good spot because I don't see anything across the table from me that is from him that's going to really stop that from being a win. But I can't read what all the enchantments are that are on Val'jericho, and I'm sure there's quite a few. Comes the Untamed turn. Gonna use that Mimicry to get some more extra value. Think, okay, discards one punctuated equilibrium. Discard the Bramble Links? No, you can use the Bramble Links. No, you can't. I'd have to find a way to kill his, I guess if he kills his Infernus using the Mimicry, he could have used his Bramble Link. But he does not. Instead, he just goes and passes back. Intriguing. Guess he has enough of a lead. He doesn't feel like he has to be overly aggressive here, as he puts the emphasis back on Dave to do something with the 8 amber and try to trap him inside of his own artifact hell that he has created. So Dave chooses Logos. Goes Igor. Some discard. He doesn't really get anywhere with that. He's kind of in his own. He's kind of trapped by his own monster here. There's that Infernus getting in more work. He does reap to go to 9 this time around, and now he can play the Exhume. Get value. He can actually discard his Infernus to play the Exhume to really just put a more of a hurt on this game. More of a discard hurt on Dave. Instead, he's going to Buzzle. He's going to Chainsaw one of his Infernuses just to get that extra Amber. So now he's just basically Amber rushing. Great play. Now he can discard, or he's going to play the Infernus out straight out, and then he's just going to hit the Exhume. Up before he gets there, though, Dave concedes, and that's the end of that game. That was 2-0 in favor of Z. Week 4, Group A action. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Wonderful game by both players. And thank you for tuning in. And this is Jupiter from Manlius, New York, aka Fifth Planet Keyforge, thanking you on behalf of the Keyforge Premier League network and the KFPL. Reminder one last time that the Fall Mass Mutation Madness is this weekend. 2-deck survival, Mass Mutation only, November 7th, 11 a.m., 4 o'clock GMT, $10 entry fee, 80% back to the prize pool, and a chance to win 20 luxurious playstyle Dark Amber tokens just for joining the competition. We'll see you on Saturday streaming live on Twitch. See you then. Thanks for tuning in, as always.